हरे मुरारे धनि धाम गम सग गम श्री कृष्ण शरणं मम धनि धाम गम सगम श्री कृष्ण शरणं मम धनि धनि धम गम रे गम धनि धम श्री कृष्ण शरणं मम धनि धनि धम गम रे धनि गम श्री कृष्ण शरणं मम धनि धनि धम गम रे सा श्री कृष्ण शरणं मम धनि
This live satsang is presented by Radha Krishna Foundation in light of the ongoing lockdown and in support of Sri Lakshmi Mandir of West Palm Beach, Florida. Radha Krishna Dham of number 73 Village, Guyana. Dharma Mandir of London, United Kingdom. And Shiva Mandir Ashram of Leguan Island, Guyana.
वृंदावन बिहारी लाल की जय, गणपति भगवान की जय। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देव महेश्वरा, गुरुर्साक्षात् परं ब्रह्मा, तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। राम राम हरे हरे, हरे राम रामचंद्र भगवान की जय। वृंदावन बिहारी लाल की जय। Devotees of Bhagavan, again this morning, this blessed Sunday morning, we're able to join together in satsang. And for those of you who have joined us, I hope and pray that your time that you will spend with us here together, and we'll be able to augment, to able to increase and make our spirituality greater, that by following satsang and the verses of the scriptures, the instructions that are given in scriptures, that we're able to uplift ourselves on a daily basis, on an event-to-event basis, whenever we need to dip into our bottomless spirituality, that we'll be able to. So I hope and pray that those benefits, among others, can be had by joining satsang this morning. This morning we'll talk briefly about Bhagavan Ganeshji. As we're all aware that Ganesh Chaturthi we celebrated a few days ago. And when Ganesh Chaturthi is celebrated, the coming of Bhagavan Ganesha, the creation of Ganeshji by Mata Parvati, then it has also become a season where the Murti of Bhagavan Ganesh is worshipped, or if not the Murti, mentally Ganeshji is worshipped. And for those devotees who worship Murtis, then they do so on a daily basis. And at the end of the season of Ganesh Chaturthi, on Purnima, which is about 10 days, approximately 11 days after there's Purnima, and so what we do is we join in Visarjan. Visarjan is a celebration of all the worship that we have done so steadfastly over the past 10 days, and then we offer a murti that was particularly made for this occasion, generally made with clay, so that it can dissolve again back into the water. So that is the season we're in right now. We've started in Ganesh Chaturthi 2 days ago. So let's give some prayers to Bhagavan Ganesha. And after that, we'll look very briefly into the occasion of Ganesh Chaturthi. We give prayers to Ganapati Bhagavan. Ganganapataye Namah. Varananam Arthasanghanam Rasanam Chandasamapi Mangalanam Chakartaro Bande Vani Vinayako Namo Shambhavaya Cha Mayo Bhavaya Cha Namayaskaraya Cha Namah Shivaya Cha Shivataraya Cha Siddhi Buddhi Prade Devi Bhukti Mukti Pradayani Mantra Murti Sada Devi Mahalakshmi Namostute. या देवी सर्वभूतेषु शक्तिरूपेण संस्थिता नमस्तस्यै 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 नमो नमः। लोकाभिरामं रणरङ्गधीरम् राजीवनेत्रं रघुवंशनाथं कारुण्यरूपं करुणाकरन्तम् श्रीरामचन्द्रं शरणं प्रपद्ये। काली काली महाकाली कालिका परमेश्वरी सर्वानंद करे देवी नारायणी नमोस्तुते। श्रीमन्महागणाधिपतये नमः। जय गणेश जय गणेश जय गणेश देवा। माता जाकी पार्वती पिता महादेव। जय गणेश जय गणेश जय गणेश जय गणेश जय गणेश देवा। माता जाकी पार्वती पिता महादेवा। जय गणेश जय गणेश जय गणेश देवा। माता जाकी पार्वती पिता महादेवा। लधुवन को भोग लगे संत कर सेवा। 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 जय गणेश जय गणेश जय गणेश देवा। माता जाकी पार्वती पिता महादेवा। जय गणेश जय गणेश जय गणेश देवा। माता जाकी पार्वती पिता महादेवा। सुमुखचैकरन्दस्य कपिलो गजकर्णका। लम्बोदरस्य विघ्तो विघ्नाशो विनायक। धूम्रकेतुर्गणादस्य भालचन्द्रो गजानन। द्वादशैतानि नामानि त्रिसंख्यं यपते नर। संग्रामे संकटस्यैव विघ्नतस्य न जायते यानि नामानि यावन्ति जय गणेश जय गणेश जय गणेश देवा जय गणेश जय गणेश जय गणेश देवा माता जाकी पार्वती पिता महादेवा माता जाकी पार्वती पिता महादेवा माता जाकी पार्वती पिता महादेवा जय गणेश जय गणेश जय गणेश देवा जय गणेश जय गणेश जय गणेश देवा जय गणेश जय गणेश जय गणेश देवा सर्वमंगलमांगल्ये सर्वार्थसाधिके शरण्ये त्र्यम्बके गौरी नारायणी नमोस्तुते गणपति भगवान की जय। Devotees of Bhagavan, special worshippers of Ganesh Bhagavan, as we said before in the beginning of our satsang, that we'll just talk a little bit today of Ganesh Bhagavan before we proceed with the other parts of our satsang. And so, to do so, I want to look into a very relevant verse regarding Ganesh Chaturthi, regarding Bhagavan Ganeshi, and this comes from the Padma Purana, the Srishti Kand, Adhyay 454 of Padma Purana. This is what that verse says. Om Sri Ganeshaya Namaha Kadachin Gandatailena Gatavayajya Shailaja Churneru Dardayamasa Milana Puritam Vapu Tadu Dartanakam Grihya Naram Chakre Gajananam Purusham Kridati Daivi Sakshepam Chadadarvase Om Namo Bhagavate Narayanaya. Here in Padma Puran, the Srishti Kand, I quoted the 454 Adhyay. It is said here, according to Padma Puran, that Shailaputri, who's also called Parvati, Shailaja means Shailaputri, that one day, as a therapy, that she applied a type of scented oil on her skin. It is believed that this oil came from the space that was made into an oil came from the haldi. So haldi oil, she prepared and applied this to her skin. Now, after sitting there for a little while, as she was taking this oil, this paste off of her skin, the grease factor that comes out, she took that and she formed it into an effigy. An effigy meaning like a human shape something. But this is just the haldi that came out of her skin. And she made that into the form of a human being. This form that she created from the haldi off of her skin was placed by the door, by the residence, by the abode of Mata Parvati. And then what she did when she placed it there, then Parvati Mata breathed life into this effigy, breathed life into this form that she created with her own hands. Why did she do this? Because Mata Parvati wanted to create some sort of protection for herself. And so this effigy was now seen as her son and placed in front of a door because of a past incident that happened according to the scriptures. And so the instruction that was given to this effigy, who is now Ganesha, was that you do not allow anyone to enter. And so here an incident took place, and this incident is taken from the Gyan Samhita of Shiv Puran in the 32nd and 33rd chapters, if you want to find it. A few verses strewn here and there, verse 19 and 69, and anywhere from 19 to 69, these verses. To be exact, they're 19, 31, 40, and 69 in the 32nd and 33rd chapter of Gyan Samhita, Shiv Puran. This is what happened. He Shambho Baba, He Shambho Baba, He Shambho Baba, mere raksha karo. He Shambho Baba, He Shambho Baba, He Shambho Baba, mere raksha karo. Karuna निधान तुम करना करो, करुणा निधान तुम करना करो, कृपा निधान तुम कृपा करो, कृपा निधान तुम कृपा करो। हे शंभु बाबा, हे शंभु बाबा, हे शंभु बाबा, मेरे रक्षा करो। हे शंभु बाबा, हे शंभु बाबा, हे शंभु बाबा, मेरे रक्षा करो। प्रतिष्ठाप्य तदा द्वारि निर्वाप्यो यैहागमेत, एतदन्तरमासाद्य शूलपानिस्ततोत्तरे, आगत्य च त्रिशूलेन शिरस्तस्य नन्पातयत्, इत्येवमभिरमन्त्रेण मन्त्रितस्य यदा पुनः। हे शंभु बाबा, हे शंभु बाबा, हे शंभु बाबा, मेरी रक्षा करो। हे शंभु बाबा, हे शंभु बाबा, हे शंभु बाबा, मेरी रक्षा करो। From Shiv Puran, it is said here that when Mata Parvati put this effigy by the gate of her abode, and she ordered that no one is to dare enter, no one is to come inside. This is the order that was given by Mata Parvati to Ganeshji. And so, lo and behold, right after a few minutes, then Trishul Dhari showed up, Agastra Trishula. Trishul Dhari is Bhagavan Shankar. After a few minutes, Shivji came with his Trishul in hand, of course. And so now Ganeshji, this little protector that was just created by Mata Parvati, not knowing according to the Leela who Bhagwan Shankar is, denied him entry into the abode of Mata Parvati. He's just following instructions. And so Bhagwan Shankar, now thinking, who's this person that is denying me entry, took his weapon, took his Trishul, and beheaded this little child when this child resisted him going into the abode of Mata Parvati. And so Parvati Mata, having come outside, recognizing that there's a commotion outside, that she came, she has realized that this now is her putra, her little son has been beheaded by Bhagwan Shankar himself. And so she expressed her disapproval, and she expressed that this is my son and I want him alive, and I've just created him. And so Bhagwan Shankar, realizing what has happened, he did a sankalp, with some water in his hand. According to the shloka in Shiv Puran, Bhagwan Shankar took some water in his hand, he did a sankalp, and he promised to bring Ganeshji back to life. At that point in time, according to the verse, that all the other forms of God had come there, and now because the head of Ganeshji was severed by Shankar Bhagwan, and that Shiv Bhagwan has promised now to bring Ganeshji back to life, then according to Shiv Puran again, this is what took place. We would look into what Shiv Puran says here. Dhimika dhimika dhim, dhimika dhimika dhim, nache bolanath. Dhimika dhimika dhim, dhimika dhimika dhim, nache bolanath. Dhimika dhimika dhim, dhimika dhimika dhim, nache bolanath, nache bolanath, nache bolanath. Nayakena bina devi maya bhutopi putraka yasma jatastato namana bhavishyati vinayaka. Ganapati Bhagavan ki jai. This is Shiv Puran. Shiv Puran in the Gyan Samhita again. This is the 72nd and 73rd verse of Shiv Puran. It says that this child that was born, and this is a confirmation of how Bhagwan Ganeshji came into being, because here Shiv Puran is saying that this child that is born, Shankar Bhagwan now is saying, that was just created, it should be known that this child was created without the participation of the reproductive system, as according to Shiv Puran. And so because this child came about without the involvement of how a baby is born regularly in the world to regular human beings, this is how Ganeshji got the name Vinayak. Vinayak is because he was born, he came into being without the assistance or the involvement of the reproductive system. And so, having promised to bring Ganeshji back to life, the Katha continues to tell us that Ganeshji was there without a head, and so Bhagavan Shankar had now sent his gunners. The gunners had gone out to bring back an appropriate head for Ganeshji. And so we know the katha, the rest of the katha is very familiar to everyone. The head of an elephant, the request was anything, and the animal that you see first that is facing north, then bring the head of that animal, and so we'll reapply the head again to Ganeshji, and so he'll come back into a normal being. However, the head of the animal that was brought was the head of an elephant. So that is why we see Ganeshji today with the head of an elephant. And also because of his katha, there's a very interesting mantra in Rig Veda. Rig Veda says, Nishudina Ganapate Ganeshu Tamahubir Pratitam Kavinam Narite Tvat Kriyate Kinchanare Mahamarka Magavan Shritarmacha. This is Rig Veda, 10th canto, the 112th chapter, 9th verse of Rig Veda. And this also serves to inform us, not that it is very important to us as Hindus or Vaidikas or Sanatanis, that these forms of God are not mentioned in the Ved, that this is only a Sanatani thing, and if you follow Ved, then you won't be following, God with the form, etc. So this is actually Rig Veda that is saying this. I gave you the quote that says that Ganeshji, because of the way that he was born, and because of the involvement of Bhagavan Shankar to replace the head of Ganeshji that he had just severed through his yogic powers. Bhagavan Shankar is Mahayogi, or is called Adi Yogi as well. That because of those, a promise had to be made to Bhagavan Shankar, because Bhagavan Shankar had done something atrocious according to Mata Parvati. That not only, Shankarji, not only are you going to bring Ganeshji back to life, but he should have some sort of great importance in the tradition of worship. And so the promise that was made is that, okay, I will bring him back to life, and he'll be the first to be worshipped. This is why Ganeshji is called Pratham Puja. But this is not just a suggestion on our part, my dear friends. This is actually written in Rig Veda. It says that Ganeshji will take a seat properly amongst devotees and amongst the different forms of God. Why? Because no other spiritual or religious work. Interestingly here, Ved is saying that auspicious and inauspicious work, whenever anybody wants to accomplish anything, that person should take the name of Ganeshji first. Here in the verse, Ganeshji is called Maghavan, or the ruler of the Riddhis and Siddhis, meaning that he has all these qualities, Ashta Siddhi, etc. So Ganeshji has these qualities. He's called Maghavan. A promise was made that he'll be worshipped first, and here, according to Rig Veda, not necessarily the Puranas alone, but Rig Veda here is saying that Ganeshji will now be worshipped first, whatever anyone is doing. And like I said before, not only auspicious work, but whatever. It can be, something secular, it can be, your job, it can be your duties at home, whatever you do. It doesn't only necessarily have to be like Karm Kand, for example, like puja, but anything you do. When you go to work, the first thing you do, you're going to drive, on the road, whatever a person is doing, then take the blessing, take the name, remember Ganeshji first. Now, just to complete this part of our Ganeshji's Chaturthi, our little message, some people would ask the question, why is it that an elephant head had to be added? Why is it not the head of another, something that looks like a human being? Or any other animal? So now very briefly, we'd look at the importance or the significance of why was it the head of an elephant. So firstly, the head of an elephant is the largest biological head in nature. What does that mean? Is that it represents limitless wisdom. The trunk of the animal, the trunk of an elephant, can lift hundreds and hundreds of pounds. Some studies would say 700-800 pounds, some studies would say 1,500 pounds. Some studies will say more. Just with the trunk of the elephant. Why? Because unlike us, we have a few thousand muscles. The trunk of an elephant alone has 40,000 muscles. Not only can it lift 1,000, 1,500 pounds or more, but it also has the ability, it has the subtlety to pick up the smallest thing. Something the size of a needle, the trunk of an elephant can pick it up, while it can also pick up 1,500 pounds. Because of this trunk, an elephant can smell water from miles and miles away. If we want water, we can't smell it anywhere. So in short, the trunk of the elephant represents the human intellect. The human intellect is so powerful that so far, human beings have made, a vessel, they've made a vehicle that has gone to the moon. To go to space, we make rockets and everything else. Because the human intellect, taken from the head of the elephant, represents the infinite potentialities that we have as man. This is the message that the trunk of the head of an elephant is giving us as human beings. That there is no shortage of potentiality, there is no shortage of possibility, that a human being is not a limited personality, that all things are possible if it is approached properly, and if we take our spirituality, the name of God with us, and we approach that thing, that all things are possible for mankind. If it is possible for us to attain God's abode permanently, then everything else comes beneath that. The ears of an elephant. A spiritually evolved person is a good listener, right? Anybody who's a deeply spiritual person, if you're speaking to that person, you would observe that that person is sitting there and is listening. Before he answers, he's listening. Because hearing is important. And we should not only be willing to hear that which is beneficial to us or that which we prefer, we should be willing to listen. And the huge ears of the elephant is telling us that we should be better listeners as human beings. That listening is a form of humility, listening is a form of helping. Listening, you can learn. Listeners are great learners. That we should not only listen to hearsay, and we should not only base our decisions upon what we're hearing or or one piece of information, but these huge ears represent that we should gather all our facts together. Because the facts are out there. It's just that do we want to know the facts or not? And don't make decisions based on limited information. You know, a beautiful story comes to mind of Socrates. Most of us know something about Socrates. You know, the Greek philosopher. So in ancient times, Socrates, you know, was always reputed to hold knowledge in very high esteem. And so one day, an acquaintance met with this philosopher and he said that, look, Socrates, do you know what I just heard about your friend? Socrates immediately responded, he said, hold on a minute. Before telling me anything, I'd like you to pass a little test. Socrates is telling his friend, a test? Yes. What is the test about? Well, this test is called the triple filter test. Okay, let's do the test. Triple filter? Okay, let's go. Socrates says, before you talk to me about my friend, it might be a good idea to take a moment and filter what you're going to say to me. Filter what I'm going to say to you? So what do I have to do? He says the first thing to filter is the truth. He's saying to his friend, have you made absolutely sure that what you're about to tell me is true? Friend says, no. Actually, I just heard it from somebody. Socrates says, okay, all right. So you don't know if it's true. All right, there's still two more filters that we have to go through. So you don't really know if it's true or if it's not true. So let's try the second one now. This filter is called goodness. And he went on to ask the friend, is what you're about to tell me about my friend, is it something good? So the friend says, no, on the contrary, it is not something good. Socrates says, so you want to tell me something bad about him? It is bad and you're not even sure if it's true. Yes. Okay, so there's still a chance that you can pass this test, you know. Let's try the third filter. This filter is called usefulness. Is what you want to tell me about my friend going to be useful to me? The guy says, let me see. Nope, not really. It's not going to be useful to you. Socrates says, okay. So hold on. If what you want to tell me is neither true nor good, nor even useful to me, answer me a question. Why exactly are you trying to tell me this? It's not useful, it's not true, and it's not good. So this is the message we take from the huge ears of the elephant. We have to be selective. You know, some people say that, oh, you have selective hearing. Usually use it not as a good thing, but as a sarcastic thing. When you don't want to listen to the wife or the husband or the children, you have to say, oh, I didn't hear. So, but really, we should have selective listening. Because that which is not good for us or good for anybody else, we know why listen to it anyways. That in Sanatan philosophy is called kusang. Kusang is of many forms. You know, the opposite to satsang is kusang. Ku means bad. You know, like Kumar. People give their children a name Kumar. Mar is from the word mard, like, you know, margai, to destroy, to beat, to kill. So Kumar is a person who has destroyed all his bad tendencies. So that is kusang. Sang means company, wrong company. So the big ears is to give us a message that we should have selective listening, only listen to that which can benefit us in some way or the other. in a dharmic way. The eyes of the elephant. See, many times from the scriptures we talk about the ego. The ego is something we all carry around with us to some level of strength or percentage. Some egos are more fragile than some are greater than some in different ways. But ego of man emerges, especially when a person feels, for example, that others around him are lower and are weaker than him. When he feels that he is better than others, when he feels that he is wealthier than others, he's more good-looking than others, he's more educated than others, he's more well-connected than others, etc., etc. We look upon somebody in the eye, and so when we have that kind of feeling, then it builds the ego stronger. When we look at somebody in the eye, and if they bow their heads, if they drop their eyes, you think that, well, I'm stronger than that person. Some people say that a confident man looks at another person in the eye. That's fine, depending on how you're looking at the person in the eye. Is it to have a straight conversation, or is it to prove who's better? So to eliminate the ego, we should take an example from the eye, or the eyes of an elephant. This is one more reason why the elephant head was chosen for Ganesh. Why? Because we see Ganesh as a remover of obstacles, right? And we pray to Ganesh to remove all obstacles. But like we always say, like a broken record in this program, that it has to be, we have to also make our contribution. And so the head of the elephant is helping us to understand what that contribution is, so that obstacles can be removed from our path. So God gave the elephant eyes so that he sees everything bigger than they actually are. This is a fact. And this is different from almost every other creature in the world. The only other thing that comes a little close to the kind of eyes that the elephant has is the owl. But you know, if you think about it, we're not going to use an owl in this category because the owl sees at night. So it's not the same thing. And the owl is very small and it flies in the air. So it's not a proper comparison. But only the owl has a similar type of eyes, but not exactly. So the elephant here is different. It sees everything bigger than they actually are. And these types of eyes are different from every other creature, like I said. So look at the size of the elephant. Look at the power of the elephant, the majesty when you look at an elephant. That is, all these qualities are conferred upon an elephant. These qualities, the elephant can use it to its advantage, and they can be destructive. But the elephant was made, the eyes were made to perceive things bigger than the elephant itself. Why? To prevent any such atrocities from taking place. So, for example, when the elephant sees a man who's 6 feet tall, he sees that an elephant is much, much higher, but he'll see that 6 feet tall man much, much bigger than itself. And it sees everything bigger than they actually are. So taking the example from the eye of the elephant, though mankind, human beings, we should always see others. Just like this. We should see others as valuable beings, as important people, as a representation of God. It's why we say Namaste, Namahate, we recognize the divinity within you. Or if you're not a spiritual person, don't look at someone and just create a judgment as to how inferior that person is and how great we are. We worship Ganeshji, so we're supposed to be freed from this type of of approach when it comes to other human beings. Because the elephant, as powerful as it is, it doesn't see anyone smaller than itself. And so if we adopt this approach in life, we would have tremendous respect for every other creature upon earth, not only human beings. But if we just start by applying it to human beings, we'll be friendly to everyone. We would not be judgmental at all to anyone. We would respect people for who they are and what they are and what they represent. You can disagree with them, etc. But you will know that they have come into this world to play their own role, and you should appreciate that. We should appreciate that in other human beings. So if we see other beings as bigger than ourselves, this will help us spiritually. This process will help us to destroy the ego that we have as human beings, and will develop humility over time. This is why the head of the elephant was chosen for Lord Ganesha. It is the only creature with this rare quality. Ganesha is also known as Ekadant. You know, Ekadanta Dayavanta Char Bhujadhari. Ekadant, one tusk. What does it mean, one tusk? You know, one tusk means that we shouldn't get too excited, or we shouldn't get too depressed with the pairs of opposites in life. You know, there are two tusks there, Ganesh Bhagwan, but one is broken. And so it represents the pairs of opposites in life. When we lose something, we get depressed. Something is not going our way. Ganesh is teaching us from this lesson, from one task, is that we shouldn't get caught up in the pairs of opposites. That is the way of the world. Likes and dislikes, loss and gain, sadness and happiness, etc., etc. These are all the various vicissitudes in life, and they will come. There is no person in whose life these opposites will not show up. We shouldn't become totally depressed when things are happening that are not approved by our emotions, or by our economic status, or our social status, etc. That we should see everything as Bhagwan, Ishwar ka prasad, and be grateful always. Ganeshji is also, Lambodar. We know that. He's a pot-belly. We call him a pot-belly god. But he's Lambodar. This Lambodar, this huge belly, represents the digestive power that we should have as human beings, the power and the capacity to endure, that we should be able to digest any kind of unpleasant situations as an evolved person. If we're spiritually enough, if we follow Ganeshji, then we should have the appetite to consume anything that comes our way and still have an equipoise of mind. How do we do that? We should be able to tap into the abundant spiritual reserves that we have within us. We should be able to invoke that spirituality and establish that extraordinary appetite for digesting that which comes our way, whether it's unpleasant or it's not. Because if we don't have an appetite to tolerate, then what would happen is that we'll become like provocateurs. Anything that comes our way will create a problem for it, only because it doesn't sit well with us and our line of thinking. We can cause problems. If we don't cause problems for others, our own lives would be miserable because we'd be worrying. Why? Because we're not preparing ourselves that bottomless capacity to understand and accept that which comes our way. But we pray to Ganesh Bhagwan. So this pot belly represents that we should be able to be very tolerant and understand and have the digestive system where whatever comes our way, that we don't lose our sanity. and bring harm to ourselves or to others. If you look at a picture of Ganesh Bhagwan, you'll see that he has one foot up and one down. One foot up and one touching the earth represents a spiritually evolved person, a person who thinks of the Atman, a person who thinks of his higher purpose. One foot is always up. A person who knows that the Atma that I have, its source is Bhagavan, that this is Atma and it has come from Paramatma, and always keep that in mind constantly. Ganeshji also has another foot on the ground. While we're thinking, some people, even spiritual people, you practice a little bit spirituality and the ego takes over. Oh, I'm so much better than you. I do so much sadhana, I do so much Rup Dhyana, I do so much meditation, I go to mandir very often, I pray every morning, all these things. We do them in the name of spirituality, and then we have an abhiman about it. That's not spirituality. We must always have one foot on the ground as well, like Ganesh Bhagwan. While we're seeking higher grounds, we're seeking greener pastures, so to speak, we're seeking Bhagwan's abode, we recognize the importance and the presence of the soul, but one foot on the ground also means that we remain humble, we remain grounded. One foot down. So this is the purpose, this is the message. When it says, when we look at the picture and realize that Ganeshji has one foot in the ground and one up, we must know that anything we seek, we have to approach it properly. Anything we want from the outside, wealth or anything else, that it should start from the inside. So one foot up, one foot down, and then we have a proper balance in life. A balance between our material pursuits and our spirituality. Our material pursuits should not overpower our spiritual ones. If not, we're failing. If so, we're failing in life. So there are so many other, on the head of Ganeshji that we can explain, but what we also observe is that Ganeshji rides on a mouse. The huge Ganesh Bhagwan rides on a little mouse. Why? Because this mouse is a vehicle that represents desire. Desire meaning, especially those who are from the West Indies, or no offense to New Yorkers, or if you live in New York City, or if you live in London, all these places, maybe everywhere. There's some rats there. And in the West Indies, when we sleep at night, the rats used to visit us. Because rats are omnivorous creatures. What do? They nibble at everything. Anything and everything that's available. Sometimes you get up and you see some impressions on your toe. A piece of it is missing. A rat would nibble at anything, even its cloth or anything else. It will destroy it, it will chip it into pieces for no apparent reason. For no particular reason. So the message to us as human beings from the rat is that we must be very careful. We must make proper choices. Be careful whom we associate with. Don't just associate with everybody because they're willing to extend an affinity with you. It is always best, especially if you're a sadhak, a person who is trying to increase your spirituality, then you should have that type of friend. Like-minded people. Don't associate it, we all tell our children experience that, Shakespeare says, Show me your company, I'll tell you who you are. And for some reason or the other, this association and who our friends are, we have limited that to children. And we as parents, somewhere along the line, have stopped thinking that that should apply to us as well. There are enough adults who are making all kinds of mistakes because of their association. Not only children. That our minds are not that spiritually concrete to resist anything around us. So what we have to do, we have to be careful with our choices. Choose who we want to be associated with. Choose the places we want to go. Choose the food we want to eat. Choose the things you want to learn, etc., etc., etc. You love to read, so you read any book. Nothing is wrong, nothing will ever be wrong with reading a book. But if you have a plan in mind that you want to read books of philosophy or business or whatever it is, then you should stay in that line and improve your knowledge. Improve your potential in that field. Make choices. Don't be too broad in everything we do. In some cases, and temporarily, that's okay. There are so many stories that we can tell that if you want to accomplish anything, then you have to hang out with those types of people. And if you want to stay away from some things, you stay away from certain types of people or associations or behavior, etc. So finally, the modak. You know, modak kapriya, Bhagwan Ganeshji, if you look at the picture, you'd always see, you know, he's holding some modak, or there's some modak there on the, by his feet. There's some, we call it laddu. What this means that if we follow all those pieces of instructions, or at least those teachings that is given merely by Ganeshji having an elephant's head, then what would happen? The modak is a representation that if we do so, the sweetness that can be gained, the sweetness that can be had, the food, the pleasant food, the good tasting food, the good tasting results, the proper experiences that we'll have. We'll have modak in our everyday life, this laddu, a sweet tasting results from all the things we do. This symbolizes the bliss and the satisfaction that devotees can experience when we exercise all the aforementioned things and we pray to Ganeshji sincerely. Because if we do so, it moves us closer and closer to our true nature. And our true nature is spirituality. What our spiritual life would bring us, it will bring us modak, it will bring us laddu, it will bring us pera. It will bring these sweet results in life that will make life very blissful, very comfortable. So there are a few more that we can talk about. We'll probably continue talking about them another time. There's a rope that Ganeshji is holding, etc. And the rope reminds us always that, we should use this rope of Ganesh Bhagwan to lift ourselves up whenever we experience a fall. Everybody tells you when you fall, the only thing you should do is get up again. That when there's a failure in life, you should see it as an opportunity not only to get up again, but to work harder and to learn from failure. Because this is the rope of spirituality that Ganeshji holds in his hand. This rope should be used to take her to a higher place. That we should use it to climb higher in life. That we should use it, it should be something that we place our attention on. Use this rope to attain the divine, to climb to the heights of divinity. And we should hold it there. This rope can take us closer and closer to our real purpose in life when we're living in this human body. This rope can take us closer to the things we want to succeed at. Ganesh holds an axe in his hand, signifies detachment. That if we detach ourselves from the things that are harmful to us, and if we use the axe to chop off that which is unwanted or unwanted situations, we should use the axe of Ganesh to chop them off. Sever ourselves from that which is harmful to us. Any spiritual distraction should be severed by the axe of Ganesh. Even emotions, harmful emotions. Sometimes we think from our emotions and not from our intellect or from our spirituality. Use the axe to chop off those things that can bring harm to us in any way. Not only spiritually, but materially as well and socially. Most of us can be very, very peaceful and happy in life. And we wouldn't need anything from the outside if we understand that we are Purnamada, that we are happy. Bhagavan has made us to be happy. But we're born and we somehow think that we have to achieve things from the outside to be happy, so we live a whole life of unhappiness. Why? Because we're not using the axe of Ganesh to chop off that which is unwanted, chop off desires that are unwanted, chop off things that will not bring us peace. Things that will distract us from our spirituality, especially our emotions. Emotions can cause us to make bad decisions. And so if we continue to make bad decisions based on emotions and not spirituality and not facts based on the characteristics of the head of Ganeshji, then we would not be successful, because Ganeshji, in closing, Ganeshji represents success. When we pray to Ganesh Bhagavan, why is it we pray to him at the beginning of anything? Because we want to be successful at that thing. But we also, as a spiritual person, as spiritual beings, we have to be able to differentiate and to decipher. We have to be able to recognize and conclude in our own way what is really success. Success is such a huge, a broad term. People decide and they have concluded that they're successful, but many times not necessarily so. It depends on what your definition of success is. What is it that we consider success? Are we successful because we're wealthy? And this is no bones with wealthy people. It's a blessing to be wealthy. But let's assume that you're wealthy but you're miserable. Is that success? Can we call ourselves successful if we're rich and miserable? If we have a great social life, we have many friends, but when they're needed the most, we're alone. Are we successful because we have many friends? Are we successful if we're a very muscular person, you've worked in the gym for 10 years, you're so big and strong, but you're unhealthy? Having muscles doesn't necessarily make you healthy. There are other factors that you have to take into consideration and practice them if you want to be healthy. But you ignore everything else and you try to build muscles, but you're unhealthy. Is that successful? Are we successful because we have big muscles if we're unhealthy? If we're very knowledgeable, we've gone to school and we have all these credentials behind our names, but we have no character, is that a successful person? We can go on and on all day, and everyone knows this. We have to be careful as to how we define what real success is. So in one word, in my opinion, take it with a grain of salt, but we should try to focus on a successful life. Not success in fits and starts. Because when you think about it, that's not necessarily success. At the end of our life, if we ask ourselves a question, have I lived a successful life? If you're able to answer, and the answer is yes, then you can't lie to yourself. At that point in time, nobody lies to themselves. When they know that, it's time to leave this body, you ask yourself, you're not telling anybody, so you'll answer sincerely and truthfully to yourself. Unless we broaden this definition to know that what is the purpose of our life, what is the real purpose, have we accomplished that? If we haven't, then we haven't had a successful life. We've had success in different areas of life. One philosopher puts it that your success is considered islands. Islands in the sea of misery. Isn't that beautiful? So when we see an island, we think, oh, this is great. No, focus on the sea. Are you in a sea of misery and you have success in fits and starts? In spurts and stops? If we're successful in one thing and fail at everything else, how on earth is that success? But at the end of life, when we can say we've had a successful life, and we don't have to necessarily accomplish any of the things I said before, but still one can have a successful life. So my dear friends, these are great lessons that can be derived from Bhagavan Ganesha and why he has an elephant head. They're tremendous lessons to be learned. There are things to emulate in life, and if we emulate them, then we'll be able to make our lives more comfortable. So I hope and pray that you'll all be able to achieve the blessings of Ganesh Bhagavan in this most auspicious season. The season where if we focus our minds on Ganesh Bhagavan, we remember these few points and we try to inculcate them into our daily lives, that before the season is over, we'll be at a different level of happiness, of ease and comfort. Only by taking these few points into consideration and praying to Bhagavan and making your little offerings to him, whether it's mentally, whether you have, modak, whether you have laddu, whether you do anything or not, just think of Ganesh Bhagavan and befriend him in your mind. And if you can make physical worship, do that as well, and you will see, we will all see, that our lives can be different. But we have to remember the lessons. Remember why Ganeshji has the head of an elephant and learn from that. So usually in our satsang we do a Bhagavad Gita verse. One other thing that we want to do also is to bring down the time of our satsang to hour and a half maximum. So we're going to not do a Gita verse today. Instead we'll close it, or we'll do our meditation and do a dhun and our meditation and close. And next week we shall continue. But please remember that we'll be celebrating Radha-ashtami. Sri Radha-ashtami is coming up very soon, in 2 days, Tuesday night. We'll do just a 1 hour satsang. We'll start at maybe 7 o'clock. We'll send out a little circular so that you can know. Maybe 7 to 8, maybe 7:30 to 8:30, but just 1 hour. We know it's a weeknight. But Radha-ashtami, it's an extremely important festival to celebrate. We celebrate all other festivals, even Sita Jayanti we know to an extent, but generally we don't celebrate Radha-ashtami. So join us on Tuesday evening to celebrate Radha-ashtami, as we'll talk a little bit about Radharani, and we'll do some kirtans and bhajans in worship to Radharani. So I hope and pray that these few words today will bring some sort of enlightenment to you. Before we go into our meditation, let us remind ourselves, put our mind, tune the mind to worship of Radharani. When we come back after a few seconds, we shall chant a dhun to Radharani.
Radha Krishna Foundation presents an international event. Friday, November 13th, 2020. Deepavali, Return of Light.
वृंदावन बिहारी लाल की जय। वंदे वृंदावनानंदा राधिका परमेश्वरीं गोपिकां परमां शुद्धां ह्लादिनीं शक्तिरूपिणीं। राधा रानी राधा रानी राधा रानी मेरी ठाकुरानी महारानी राधा रानी मेरी राधा रानी राधा रानी राधा रानी मेरी ठाकुरानी महारानी राधा रानी मेरी राधा रानी राधा रानी राधा रानी मेरी राधा रानी राधा रानी राधा रानी मेरी ठाकुरानी महारानी राधा रानी मेरी ठाकुरानी राधा रानी राधा रानी ओ मेरी ठाकुरानी महारानी राधा रानी मेरी ठाकुरानी महारानी राधा रानी मेरी राधा रानी राधा रानी 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 मेरी 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 राधा रानी राधा रानी राधा रानी ठाकुर हो की ठाकुरानी राधा रानी ठाकुर हो की ठाकुरानी राधा रानी मेरी राधा रानी राधा रानी राधा रानी मेरी राधा रानी 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 बोलो राधा रानी राधा रानी राधा रानी बोलो राधा रानी राधा रानी राधा रानी विहरती नित्य वृंदावन राजधानी विहरती नित्य वृंदावन राजधानी ओ मेरी राधा रानी मेरी राधा रानी ओ मेरी राधा रानी मेरी राधा रानी मेरी राधा रानी राधा रानी राधा रानी मेरी राधा रानी राधा रानी राधा रानी विहरती नित्य वृंदावन राजधानी विहरती नित्य वृंदावन राजधानी ओ विहरती नित्य वृंदावन राजधानी विहरती नित्य वृंदावन राजधानी मेरी राधा रानी राधा रानी राधा रानी 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 वृंदावन बिहारी लाल की जय। So for those of you, if you just came on, you might be wondering, why are we closing this early? We're trying to make our satsang into an hour and a half from start to finish. So we're about 15 minutes away from an hour and a half. So at this time, we'll join in meditation. Let us all try to sit comfortably. Let us keep the feet on the ground if we're sitting on a chair. Let's close the eyes. Let us keep the back straight and the head straight. Let's take some deep breaths in, please. Breathe in. Exhale. Breathe in. Exhale. One last deep breath, all the way to the top of the breath. Hold it, hold it, hold it. Exhale and relax into this breath. Exhale and relax into this breath. Relax into this exhalation. The body should feel more relaxed. The heart rate should go down. And now our meditation will be based on what is called the Lakshman Rekha. We've discussed Bhagavan, we've discussed Sri Ganesh, that he is the protector, and he protects devotees. So what we'll do in our imagination, let us draw what is called a Lakshman Rekha. This means a circle. Let us choose a very peaceful place to sit in our imagination. Choose the most beautiful place you can imagine, somewhere you want to go, somewhere you like to go. But it's very quiet, it's very tranquil, it's very peaceful. And you're sitting on the ground in your imagination, and you have drawn a circle around you. The Lakshman Rekha is what Lakshmanji drew, the line that he drew when he was in the forest with Bhagavan Sri Ram and Sita Mata, when Bhagavan Sri Ram ran after Marich, the golden deer. When they heard a sound and Sita Maya is telling Lakshman to go and see if his brother needs help. But Lakshman was instructed to stay and protect Mata Sita, but because he did not want to be rude to Mata Sita, he wanted to go ensure that his brother is okay. In order to protect Mata Sita, he drew what is called Lakshman Rekha, a protective line around her, and told her, don't ever step over this line. If you do, you can get into trouble, and if you don't, nothing upon the surface of this earth can bother you. So let us draw that line in our imagination, a few feet away from us, maybe 5 feet, maybe 10 feet. This is a circle around us. Lakshman Rekha is called the fire circle, or the fire ring. This is a protective fire. It protects devotees from situations like Ravan and anything else that is unbecoming. It protects us against distorted thinking that can affect our mental balance. So now that fire that is inherent in that line has been ignited. There's this fire around you, but it's a beautiful flame. It's an orange, beautiful flame that is not too high, but is coming out of this line, and you're sitting in the middle. You're not feeling any heat, you're not scared, but you're comfortable and confident. Because now you have drawn the Lakshman Rekha, a protective ring around you. You can feel the warmth of the fire, but a good warmth, like when you're sitting around a bonfire. You're surrounded by this divine fire. This fire represents, Bhagavan says in scripture, Bhumirapo Analo Vayu Kam Brahma. Bhagavan says that I am the fire within you, I am the fire that you see outside. So this fire is divine, is Agni. So this is not a destructive fire, it's a helpful divine thing. It represents Bhagavan. Know now and feel that nothing negative can cross this fire ring, and that you're secure and that you're peaceful. That no one can violate the sanctity of this protected area. That is designated by no other than Ganeshji. Ganesh Bhagavan has drawn this line for you. It's a line of protection. And by drawing this fire ring, this ring of protection, you become free from the worry of any unfortunate thing happening in your life when you're doing anything, and you're happily proceeding to do your daily duties, because now you know you have the greatest protection a human being can have. This ring of fire, keep envisioning the fire, a beautiful orangish fire. This fire ring gets rid of mental tensions, so that we can be free of stress. We can be free of tension. This fire ring helps us. It helps to protect us from worry, from anxiety, from negativity, and thoughts of unwanted and unexpected fears that we sometimes experience in life. Because to do anything in life, we need the confidence. Confidence that we can succeed in that particular task. So to have that confidence always in our daily duties, let us use that ring of fire, that protective line drawn by Ganeshji, drawn by the protector of Parvati Maya, the protector of the world, Bighna Haran, with a mantra in the same way that the rishis of yore initiated and controlled weapons, missiles, only with mantras that are so much more precise than the best weapon, the best missile today. In the same way, a mantra can draw this line of protection for devotees. It can create an armor. This armor of Lakshman Rekha can be drawn again and again in our lives. Whenever we feel doubtful, whenever we feel disturbed, whenever we're filled with anxiety, any such situation arises in our lives, we draw the Lakshman Rekha, and it will provide security. We know that most things in our lives just needs mental security. And if we feel mentally secured, our lives are more peaceful. This Lakshman Rekha gives security, it gives compassion, it gives piety and affection. whenever we invoke it, we'll always be enabled to recognize and express, because of the confidence of the ring of fire, we'll be able to recognize and express our own formidable potential as a human being, and more especially or more powerfully as a human being who has a relationship, who's a devotee, who's a sadhak, who pursues God and invokes Him in his personal life. Always, Hey Bhagwan, enable us to invoke this ring of fire, this Lakshman Rekha, this ring of protection. O Ganeshji, do protect us always, so that we can be successful in all our future activities. Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Nirviganam Kuru Me Deva Sarvakaryashu Sarvada Sriman Mahaganadipataye Namaha Sriman Mahaganadipataye Namaha Sriman Mahaganadipataye Namaha Hari Om Shanti 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 Mahaganapati Bhagavan Ki Jai. And so to conclude our little celebration for today, we'll close with a small bhajan that everyone knows, that most of us grew up with. And so let us group our voices together as we do one verse or so. Jai Ganesha, Jai Ganesha, Jai Ganesha Deva. Everyone knows this bhajan, so please group your voices together. Jai Ganesh means victory to Ganapati Bhagwan. If Ganeshji is victorious, it means that we are victorious. Jai Ganesh, Jai Ganesh, Jai Ganesh Deva. Jai Ganesh, Jai Ganesh Deva. Mata Jaki Parvati Pita Mahadeva. Jai Ganesh Deva. Jai Ganesh, Jai Ganesh, Jai Ganesh Deva. Mata Jaki Parvati Pita Mahadeva. Jai Ganesh Deva. Jai Ganesh Deva. लधुवन को भोग लगे संत करे सेवा, संत करे सेवा। लधुवन को भोग लगे संत करे सेवा। जय गणेश देवा, जय गणेश, जय गणेश, जय गणेश देवा। माता जाकी पार्वती पिता महादेवा। जय गणेश देवा, जय गणेश देवा। मात चार भुजाधारी, चार भुजाधारी। मात पे सिंदूर सोहे मूस के सवारी, मूस के सवारी। दुखियों को दुख हरत, दुखियों को दुख हरत परमानंद देवा। जय गणेश देवा, जय गणेश, जय गणेश, जय गणेश देवा। मात जाकी पार्वती पिता महादेवा। जय गणेश देवा, जय गणेश देवा। आंधन को आँख देख, कोढ़ियन को काया, कोढ़ियन को काया। बांझन को पुत्र देख, निर्धन को माया, निर्धन को माया। भौस पार करो नाथ, भौस पार करो नाथ, भजन करो देवा। जय गणेश देवा, जय गणेश, जय गणेश, जय गणेश देवा। मात जाकी पार्वती पिता महादेवा। जय गणेश देवा, जय गणेश देवा, जय गणेश देवा। बार बार वर मांगहो, हर्ष देह श्रीरंग। पर सरोजयन पावनी, भक्ति सदा सतसंग सिया। पति रामचंद्र की जय, शरणम प्रभु। उमापति महादेव की जय, पवन सुत हनुमान की जय। सियावर रामचंद्र की जय, शरणम प्रभु। सब संतन की जय, जय सीताराम। Before we close our satsang today, I want to thank all of you for joining us on this special day. I especially want to thank the teachers of Sanatan Dharma. Before we close, I just have two announcements to make. And one is that this satsang is coming on Facebook and YouTube, and for you to receive our updates, then you have to subscribe to it. So that's an announcement. And I also want to, before we close, to extend our sympathy to our dear daughter, Bhupali, who has lost her grandmother. I think this is her Aji, and her Aji is Srimati Shairul Abdul, who lives in the West Indies, I think she lives in Grenada, and so passed away recently, to Bhupali and Shri, and our little darling, and to the rest of the family. We hope and pray that Bhagavan will bless you with understanding and know that these are the opposites of life, and we pray that Bhagavan will bless Raji's soul with a place with him. Shall we join in a short prayer as we ask Bhagavan to bless the soul of the Aji of Bhupali? Hari Om. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kansachanur Mardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. Vrindavan Bihari Lal Ki Jai. I also want to thank all the teachers of Sanatan Dharma who, to all those teachers who've joined us today. Always my dad who's my dad's brother, his dad, especially also because our dad is not here. So Pandit Satyacharan Sharma of London, Dad, it's great to have you again. I know you have your headphones and you're watching, and nobody can pass by the television, so I hope nobody passed by the television today. We also have my Mamu, Pandit Hari Prasad, and Dad here, Pandit Chandraban Hardwar. They have always joined us. My dear Chachi Srimati Indrani Sharma from New York has also joined us, and she does Chachi. It's always great to have you. Dr. Brahm, Dr. Lakshman Hardwar has also joined us, my brother Pandit Dwarka. All the other Pandits, my Chacha from Canada always is joining us too. For me, he's Pandit because he also taught me, Pandit Lokmanya Tilak Sharma. He has also joined us, and now Pandit Nishalji, my friend from Guyana. So Panditji, thanks for joining us. All the Pandits from Guyana, Pandit Tulsi, my brother there, Prasad from Legwan, and Pandit Amit, and all the other young Pandits from the quarantine, from the foundation. It's always great to have all of you, as I keep encouraging, and let us all do what we can do in these times of distress and uncertainty. Let us try to spread the scripture around so people can be more confident. My brother Sri Madanji, Madan Jagjevji, who's doing a fantastic job teaching Bhagavad Gita to anyone who is interested in the New York area. And so to all you teachers of Sanatana Dharma, if I've forgotten any name, forgive me. But I also know that my other Chacha Pandit, Somnath Sharma from London, sometimes Chacha Vyas joins us in satsang. So to all of you, you're an inspiration to us and what we do to continue to provide this seva to humanity. We seek your blessing and your approval and your company whenever we do this. So may Ganesh Bhagwan bless all of you. May you feel and experience his blessings. Remember, when you feel uncertain, to draw that ring, that fire of protection around you always, and invoke yourself brimful with confidence again because of the presence of Ganesh Bhagwan in your life again. Enjoy the season of Ganeshji's worship, and we shall see you for Radha Ashtami for 1 hour on Tuesday evening from 7:30 to 8:30 Tuesday evening. Please do join us for a special celebration and to learn a little bit more as to who Radha Rani is. Until we see you again, until we meet you again, may Bhagwan keep you safe. Vrindavan Bihari Lal Ki Jai.
Radha Krishna Foundation presents an international event. Friday, November 13th, 2020. Deepavali, Return of Light. This live satsang is presented by Radha Krishna Foundation in light of the ongoing lockdown and in support of Sri Lakshmi Mandir of West Palm Beach, Florida. Radha Krishna Dham of number 73 Village, Guyana. Dharma Mandir of London, United Kingdom, and Shiva Mandir Ashram of Legwan Island, Guyana.